Howdy and welcome back to the workshop. My name is Will Stelter and I am a professional bladesmith. That means that I make knives for a living, kind of. Really, I make YouTube videos, but I also happen to make knives. I'm currently in the process of building my master bladesmith test set, but we figured we'd interrupt that for a quick little knife review. This is a knife that I get advertised to all the time on Instagram. I've seen dozens and dozens of ads for this knife. In the past, I've done 2 other of these videos. Neither of those knives have done well at all, and so naturally my inclination, if something is shoved down my throat all the time on social media, I want to hate it. That being said, I think this knife is going to be good, unfortunately. But we're going to dig right on in. This is the Hedley and Bennett chef's knife. I don't think it has another name than that. I think it's just their Guido. So first thing we're going to do is dig in and talk about the fit and finish and the build quality of this. And then we're going to make a little bit of guacamole, so lots of chopping and dicing. And we're going to be comparing it against 2 other knives, one Japanese Santoku and one Guido that I made a couple of years ago. And we'll just see how it compares up to those. But let's dig on in, get this thing opened up, and see what we think. I would like to preface this before I start saying anything by letting you know that I really do not want to like this knife. As a general rule, just not a fan of like Chinese production knives. That being said, my initial impression of this knife is very good. We'll see how it cuts, but I'm unfortunately optimistic. Ergonomics on it, kind of low. There's no crazy curves in here or anything like that, which is actually, I think, a really good thing. The more dramatic of curves you add into a knife, a handle of any sort, the less versatile it is. So when you add like finger notches, it just means that it's going to fit some people's hands well and it's going to fit other people's hands very poorly. By having kind of a neutral curvature to the handle, it's going to fit everybody's hand just fine. The transition from the blade into the handle is a nice smooth slope, totally comfortable. Again, nothing crazy there. They've even rounded off the spine and choil a little bit, which is something that you hardly ever see in production knives. You can tell that some good thought went into this. The actual fit and finish of it is meh. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's not as bad as some of the other knives that we reviewed, and definitely not as bad as the next one that we're going to review, but it's not like super impressive. There's deep scratches in the pins from a lower grit, whatever it was used to flush the pins up with the handle material. There's some deeper scratches in the bolster, and the actual fit up isn't all that great, but it's not going to let any moisture in there. This material is not going to shrink because it's not a wood, and so you're not going to get any gaps or anything like that. I can catch my fingernail on it a little bit, but it's not bad. Not anything that I would be worried about. The actual finish on it, I believe, was done with a big old wide wheel, using the side of it to get the final finish on there. The thing that I am most impressed with about this is the fact that the blade has some convexing to it. It's not just a full flat grind. It has some convexing. That means that the cutting performance is going to be a lot better because rather than having full flats pushing through a piece, it's kind of like that, and so you're only contacting a much smaller area down by the edge. It has a decently thin edge. I'd say kind of average for a production chef's knife. It's about 15 thousandths of an inch behind the edge. That's about 1/3 of a millimeter, 0.4 of a mil, something like that. And then it's about 100 thou at the spine with a little bit of distal taper coming down. That's, again, another good thing, having some distal taper in there. Very good. It's exactly what you want. The way that you use a knife, you can use the back end. You have a little bit more support there for going through thicker, starchier stuff. Yeah, you can kind of see that line there. They don't tell you what steel it is. They say that it's a Japanese alloy. That's just kind of some marketing words. They say that it's high carbon. I would be surprised if it is high carbon. It's almost definitely stainless cladding. I would guess that it's probably VG10 or something like that, a pretty common fine. It's not great, it's not terrible. It's just kind of a medium fine alloy, really common in Japanese production knives. The actual edge that it came with is decent, definitely done on a belt of some sort. So not great, not terrible though, could be worse. Pretty consistent edge thickness all the way down. This thing was definitely finished by hand, but again, not terrible. So yeah, overall, I'm impressed. For 115 bucks, which is what I paid for this knife, I think that you're getting pretty dang decent chef's knife. We'll verify that here in a second. To me, that's really cheap. To me, this is like the cheapest chef's knife that you would want to buy. You spend less money than that and you just can't get a good product. Overall, I'm impressed. But before we jump into any cutting, let's give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, which is Huel. Today's sponsor, Huel, is here to help. Huel is no prep meals that don't compromise on your health. Huel is ideal for when you're pressured with time, on the go, in a rush, or away from the kitchen. All you need is some cold water and you have a convenient and nourishing meal in seconds. I love Huel's Black Edition, which is their low-carb, high-protein powdered meal. It has 40 grams of protein plus 27 essential vitamins and minerals. It's plant-based, gluten-free, and has no artificial sweeteners. Huel products are designed by nutritionists and dietitians to give your body everything it needs from a healthy meal in an extremely easy and convenient way. In short, you get a high-quality, nutritious breakfast or lunch for just $2.50 a meal. This is super convenient for me, especially right now. While I'm doing my Master Bladesmith test set, I've been doing 12 to 16-hour days in the shop for the last month, which, as you can imagine, doesn't leave a whole lot of time for cooking. And so being able to have this for breakfast is fantastic. You feel full, you feel energized. It's not like just drinking like a smoothie in the morning. It actually has quite a bit more to it than that. That high protein, a little bit of fat, low carbs, just makes you feel good, makes you feel energized. So if you want to save time, save money, and eat healthy, you can use code Stelter for 15% off your first Huel order, and they'll include a t-shirt and a shaker bottle, which is a $40 value in there. That's code Stelter, and that link will be in the description down below. Having a busy life shouldn't stop you from eating healthy, so check out Huel today. First cuts, since we're making guacamole, we're gonna do our avocados first. Won't really be able to tell a whole lot from this. Avocados are so inconsistent that it's just, you don't get a whole lot of info from it. I feel like I have a good feeling of where the tip of that knife is as I'm trying to go through this though. It's good. All right, next we're gonna put this entire onion in. We're not actually gonna put the whole onion in. We are, however, going to cut up a large portion of it. All right, I'm feeling quite a bit of resistance here going through this onion. That was not as pleasant as I hoped that it was going to be. That was nice. Nice cut there. Nice feeling cut there. I'm going to cut this in half again. It feels nice. You can really feel that convex geometry. Man, I'm impressed. I feel like you can feel that the edge is like a little bit too thick, but it's not a huge deal. It feels like 20% more resistance than I feel with this knife, and this knife has a pretty decently thinner edge. Now, I think that this cuts very well for a production knife. Very, very well for a production knife. I'm impressed with that, honestly. That was a pretty nice feeling cut. This is not for the guac, this is collateral damage. Just doing some thin slices. Seeing how it feels with this knife. Excellent. You can feel it a little more. It wants to steer a little bit more, but not by a whole lot. Getting those really astoundingly thin slices is definitely easier with this. This one doesn't want to steer quite so much. And when I say steer, I mean start the cut and the knife kind of wants to push itself out of the way. It's a pretty thin one, but it's not quite as thin as it should be able to get. It's just hard to get those really, really thin slices with the Hedley and Bennett. Let's try it with the Santoku. Yeah. So overall, onion cuts well. You can feel the thickness of the edge, I'd say, is the biggest thing. It wants to kind of push itself out of the way a little bit. Again, really good for a production knife. All right, next up, we're gonna do a couple things and then we're gonna roast them on a hot piece of plate steel here. First, I'm just going to have these tomatoes and then we will roast them on that plate. See how this feels. This is a pretty gritty edge. Usually for cutting tomato skin, having something with a little tooth to it bites into that skin quite a bit easier. Yeah, that cuts nice. Give it a shot with this guy. Yeah, a little bit easier. Not like a ton though. Not like a twice as easy. That just Japanese geometry is stupid good. Let's start heating up this piece of plate. Get it washed off. We want to get this thing screaming hot to char up our jalapenos and tomatoes a little bit. All right, let's give this a shot. Oh yeah. That's key for getting the rich, smoky propane flavor in your work. Hank Hill approved. Wow, this looks awful. The way that it's able to go through these mushy tomatoes is very impressive. It's like they're not even there. And now let's do some jalapenos. Alrighty. Get that stem out of there. Sounds so good. What was that? Is that a seed? Should I be wearing eye protection? It's like coloring. You can just burn a hole in it, do you think? Wild! Look at that, it's still green on the inside. That's crazy. Loco en español, por favor. Nice. Goes through this well. Bites into that skin well. That kind of toothy edge is really good for that. I'm really not noticing that over travel as I'm chopping through this. Didn't really bother me right there, which is good. Yeah, I can definitely tell the difference between these two knives. Not to toot my own horn, but this knife just cuts better. I do notice, I guess, the over travel a little bit on the Hedley and Bennett. I can tell that this knife has a really firm stop when I rock the blade, and you just got to control it a little bit more with the Hedley and Bennett. It wants to just a little bit of over travel. But I gotta say, this Hedley and Bennett cuts better than a lot of custom chef's knives that people do. All right, let's get us a little cilantro. Probably not use this whole bunch. It feels good, that rock. Feels good. You know, for this particular task, don't really notice a whole lot of difference. The only big difference is in the back a little bit here. My knife is just a little bit flatter in that last little bit, which I prefer having that hard stop. Makes it a little bit more economical with your movement, a little bit better of economy of motion for that last little bit of chopping. You kind of trade off a hard stop, which I believe that some people don't like. It's like contacting like halfway down, there to there. Little less motion than there to there. Not a huge deal. Very small deal, actually. Now let's cut ourselves a lime. Nice. Let's do a lime with this guy. Yeah, pretty similar. Oh, garlic. We still got to do garlic. All right, garlics with the Hedley and Bennett. Being able to get those really thin slices I like a lot when I'm doing mincing for garlic. It makes a difference. Yeah, I just don't feel like I can get that fast of a cut with the Hedley and Bennett. That thin geometry makes a difference for this sort of thing especially. If they take that edge like twice or 3 times as thin, get it down to like that 5 thou mark, this would absolutely be, this might already be the best production knife that you could buy, but it would then be competing with a lot of like the really good custom chef's knives even. It's challenging, though, definitely in a production environment to get the edge that thin. We'll do one with the Santoku, although it hasn't really been. It's just such a different knife that it's hard to compare it, but it's definitely capable of those thinner cuts. It also has very thin geometry, and so it's able to really make those fine cuts. But it's such a different shape and different geometry than the Gudos that it's hard to compare. Try and get some. Yeah, it's just not doable to get those really thin cuts. It's going to be very garlicky guac. All right, I think that's it as far as cut tests go. And in conclusion, good guac. I am extremely impressed with this knife, especially for the price point. Even if this was a $300-$400 knife, I think it would still be a pretty good value. The cutting performance that you're getting is really good. And if you're kind of a handy person, maybe you have some whetstones, you could go in and thin out that edge, and then you'd have a very, very good performing knife for a very, very attractive price. This is probably the knife that I'm going to recommend to people now when they ask me for a good budget kitchen knife. Hedley and Bennett, good job. Now just figure out how to make it in the States and it'll be really, really good. It'll also be $500-$600 though. So overall, Hedley and Bennett did a great job. I have no affiliation with them. I spent my own money on this. Because I got advertised to so much, I did it out of spite. Take that. Good job, guys. I think it's a great solid option for an overall chef's knife, just a hair shy of an 8-inch blade. That is about the most popular utility chef's knife model. This has a little sour cream on it, but this is the knife that I use for almost everything. You very rarely need a knife any bigger than this, and if you have a good 8-inch chef's knife, I very rarely use a knife smaller than this. So I use this for pretty much everything, and this is almost the exact same knife. I think they have a set of knives with a bread knife and then another smaller knife for less than $200. That's a screaming deal. Definitely worth it for the price, I think. I don't know about the bread knife or the smaller knife. If you make sourdough, having a serrated knife is handy, but yeah, good job. I don't have any affiliate link or code or anything like that for you, but if you do want to support someone that does support the channel, you can go check out Huel. Again, their link is in the description down below. Thank you guys. Thank you for the patrons for supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.